Hey Techno Studs, it's time to start focusing on setting up our WAN connections. We have a couple more routers and a switch that we're going to set up to create a whole WAN network. Now, when we set this up, we want to make sure that we set up the equipment correctly. I've already covered how to set up a router and how to set up a switch. So a lot of the content that I'm going to go over in this video is repeat of some of the other videos that I've created. However, it's important that we set it up correctly, so I'm going to breeze through this pretty quickly and set up the equipment similar to the way we've set up the other equipment. Here's the network that we're setting up. Up until now, my videos have set up this router, 3 switches, a demo laptop, and a few Pis. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add router 2, router 3, and this switch. So this video is just going to cover configuring some of the basic configurations of router 2, router 3, and the switch. At this point in time, I'm consoled into router 2, and the reason why I have to console into it is because it doesn't have connectivity via any of the other means yet. So I'm consoled into this, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get into the global configuration mode. And then next, I'm going to give this the host name. So I'll give it the host name and the domain name here. And I give it these so that way we can generate the RSA key. So I'm going to generate the RSA key. It's going to ask me, I'm going to do a key of 2048. So I'll hit enter, then it's going to create that key. And this is creating the key for SSH. So I wanted to do this before I set up the rest of the commands, the SSH commands. So we're going to let that finish generating that key. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to copy these are all of the commands that are just general commands that I'm going to be posting on all of the routers here. All right, it just finished up, so I'm going to paste these commands in here to do some configurations with this, and it enters that all in there. So that's now entered in there. The next thing is the enable secret. Of course, I want this to be different on each of these machines, so I'm going to do enable secret, and I've already generated an enable secret. So here's the R2 enable secret password, and I'll paste that into there. And now I've created that password. This is the loopback interface, so we're going to be using the loopback interfaces, especially for the purposes of what we're doing here in the next couple modules. So I'm going to create this loopback interface on here. And then on the line console, we do need to set the password for that as well. So I'm going to paste that into there. And the console, I've got the password here I've already generated. I'll paste that into there, and then we will finish it up with this login. So that's R2. R2 is now configured, and now let's jump to R3. All right, I've plugged in my console cable into router 3. I started it up, and we are now up and running. So I'm going to do the same thing, do the configurations of this. I start out by getting into the global configuration. And I do need to be in enable mode. So conf-t, and then we will create the RSA here, and I want 2048. So we'll generate that, and that does take a second. And then once that comes up, I will paste the next set of commands in here. All right, SSH has been enabled, so we are good to go there. So next I'm going to paste this next set of commands in here and get that all in there. I have the enable secret, so that's to get into enable mode. Oops, I do need to include the password here. So router 3 to get into the enable, I'm going to copy the password. I'll paste it into here, and there we have that. Next is the loopback. So I'll get the loopback all set up on here. And then I'm going to create a line console password. So I got to get into the line console and then create the password, which I have here again in KeyPass. copy the password, paste that into there, and then log in. And now router 3 is all set up. And next I'm going on to the switch. So I'll switch out the console cable to start programming the switch. I've switched out the cable and we're now connected to the switch. This is the switch that's going to be on the other side of our network. I'm calling it the server network or the SRV network. So this would be like equivalent to maybe we are hosting some of our equipment off-site, or possibly we have a dedicated data center. And so that's what this is. So we're setting up this switch, and the switch is just going to be something that we can ping to be representative of this network over here. So do we want to go through initial configurations? We're going to say no to this. I'm going to get into the enable mode. So the first thing with these switches is that they're set up, we need to set it up to be able to handle IP version 6. So I'm going to copy this command right here, paste it in here for IP version 6. I'll probably have to be in the global configuration mode. So conft, paste this into here, hit enter, and then it says we need to reload for this to take effect. So I'm going to hit reload on this. We'll go through the reload process, and then we will continue to configure this switch. All right, so the switch is back up and we're ready to continue with our configuration. I'm going to get to the enable mode and then configure terminal. I've got a couple things I need to set, except for I don't need to generate the RSA key this time because this particular switch will have it enabled already. So I'm going to continue on. Most of this is there's just a couple changes with this, but for the most part, this is the same as the router. So I'm going to paste all of this into there as well. We will need to create an enable secret on here. So enable secret, and I didn't generate one yet, so I'm going to need to create a new key here. And this is for SRV is the network dash switch 1. There is only going to be one switch at this point in time. So, and I'll call this enable. And we'll copy the password here, paste it into there. Might as well at the same time create another password for SRV-switch1- and this is the console password because I'm going to need that next. So I'll do that. So the console password, copy that, paste it into there, and now we're all nice and secure. I'll put that into there. We're just going to use the default VLAN. I do want to be able to ping something over there, so I'm going to create this. I'm going to create a management interface on here. It will need a gateway to get out to the rest of the world, so I'm going to paste that all into there. And there we have it. So now this switch is configured. So now all of our devices have just the general configuration on them, and we're ready to take the next steps, which would be to create the links and get it all communicating.